Body is discovered 10 miles out to sea. It sparks a mind-blowing police investigation. He's one of the most wanted men in the world.
This isn't really happening. Officers finding large sums of money.
It's a tale of murder, skullduggery, and international intrigue.
So who really is he? I'm Sam Mullins, and this is Sea of Lies from CBC's Uncover. Available now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
You know the feeling of finding a really good podcast? Or the feeling of someone always being there, like your favorite radio show? Stream CBC Podcasts, CBC Music, and CBC Radio anytime, anywhere.
This is CBC News. Good afternoon, I'm Josh Crabb in Winnipeg. At noon, it's cloudy and minus 14 downtown, minus 11 in Churchill, and minus 23 in Flin Flon. There's a snowfall warning in effect for the Dauphin area. 10 to 20 centimeters is expected. Independent financial audits of health authorities in Manitoba show issues with spending, communication, and a deterioration of patient care. Health Minister Uzoma Asseguara says the audits found a disconnect between the government's direction to improve culture and direct more spending towards the front line. As a result, Asseguara says the CEOs of Shared Health and the Winnipeg Regional Health Authority have been replaced. Dr. Chris Christodoulou is replacing Lynette Siragusa as CEO at Shared Health, and Jane Curtis is replacing Mike Nader at the WRHA. Asseguara says change is necessary.
Vacancy rates, net new healthcare workers, nurses returning to the public system, always ways to assess what's happening with the culture. But one thing I can say is that what I've heard loud and clear from folks is that they want their leaders to be emotionally intelligent. They want their leaders to listen to the front lines, and I'm confident that Dr. Chris Christodoulou and Jane Curtis are those leaders.
The audit found Southern Health, which was run by Curtis, was the only region that did not have annual deficits. Manitoba is spending $800,000 on programs to help men reduce violence against women. Families Minister Nahanni Fontaine announced the disbursement today. She says men are responsible for 90% of the violence against women and need to support that to end violence.
There is more of an awareness and more of an attention that is placed on what we need to do to be able to support men to deal with the myriad of different things that they deal with that contribute to intimate partner violence and male violence.
The money is going to 5 programs across Manitoba. The federal government is covering half the tab. The current deadline for the imposition of U.S. tariffs is March 4th, but Mark Carney expects negotiations between Canada and the U.S. to continue past that point. The Liberal leadership candidate says there are things Canadians can do to protect the economy.
The first and best thing that we can control is to be masters in our own house, which we are, and it's to build and reinforce the economy here at home. And so some of the measures that I outlined, adjusting in our tax system, both for individuals and for companies, supporting builders with government programs that catalyze it, supporting action by speeding up permitting and other actions.
Carney was speaking at the Gordie Howe Bridge on the Windsor-Detroit border. With U.S. President Donald Trump's tariff threat still hanging over Canada, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has announced he'll host a special economic summit on Friday. Canadian leaders from trade, business, and labor will discuss how to diversify Canada's export markets and make trade within Canada easier. In Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories, there's been mixed reaction to Donald Trump's plan to have the U.S. take over Gaza. The president said new and permanent settlements for Palestinians should be built in the neighboring countries of Jordan and Egypt. In Israel,
it's a win-win situation if it will happen to everyone, except Hamas, of course.
It looks like what he said about the Canada and about the Greenland, that America just wants Gaza for itself.
Meanwhile, Palestinians fiercely reject Trump's call to seize Gaza and relocate them.
America is not the only country in this world can support Palestine, can support Gaza. There is an Arab country, Europe also country standing with the Palestinian people.
Both Jordan and Egypt have also rejected the plan. Members of Manitoba's Palestinian community are outraged at the suggestion the U.S. would own Gaza and move people out. Ramsey Zeid, president of the Canadian Palestinian Association of Manitoba, says the suggestion by President Trump would be a violation of international law.
This is not a TV show. This is not one of his own businesses that he's operating. These are countries that don't belong to him. These are people's lives that he's playing with, and he needs to tread lightly.
Zeid says Palestinians just want to live in peace and rebuild. The vice president of the Philippines has been impeached by the House of Representatives.
Having been filed by more than 1/3 of the membership of the House, is there any objection? The chair hears none. The motion is approved.
The House Speaker announces the results of the vote that could lead to Sara Duterte's removal from office. She is the daughter of former strongman President Rodrigo Duterte. She has been embroiled in a bitter political feud over a range of issues, including death threats she made against the president, his wife, and the House Speaker. Duterte now faces an impeachment trial by the Senate. The trend of sports fans booing anthems took a turn last night. While in Winnipeg some fans booed the U.S. anthem, it was a different story in San Jose. Fans cheered "O Canada." Those fans may not have cheered the result of the hockey game, though. San Jose lost to the Montreal Canadiens 4-3. And that is CBC News from Winnipeg. Your next local news is at 12:30. For news anytime, you can always head to cbc.ca/Manitoba or download the free CBC News app.
Good afternoon, Manitoba. You're listening to Radio Noon on CBC Radio 1. It is Wednesday, February 5th. My name is Chloe Friesen. Thank you for spending your afternoon with us. Coming up on today's show, a lack of food donations and over 1,000 new food bank users has Brandon's major food bank making a change. No more weekly food hampers. We'll check in with the executive director of Samaritan House coming up. And now that there are confirmed cases of measles in southern Manitoba, we'll speak to a doctor on our call-in conversation who will answer your questions about how to keep you and your loved ones protected. But first, a provincial health audit is shaking up the leadership at 2 health authorities and calls out spending that has been focused on, quote, bloated bureaucracy than healthcare front lines. Details coming up. As we've been reporting in the news, Manitoba's health minister has released the results of an audit that has prompted a leadership shakeup at 2 health authorities, Shared Health and the Winnipeg Regional Health Authority. The commissioned audits did a comprehensive review of operations at multiple health authorities. It found all but one had consistently reported annual deficits. Here's Health Minister Uzoma Asagwara speaking to media last hour.
Since we formed government, we have been focused on shifting the culture in healthcare. A culture that values frontline workers, that puts patients at the center of care, ensuring that everyone is able to get the care that they need. Over the past 18 months, we have worked very hard to refocus the system on what patients and the front lines want to see. That's shorter wait times, more staff, and more beds. But we haven't always seen the health system focus their resources on the same things. There is a disconnect between the message that our government has been saying and the decisions that healthcare leaders in some cases have been making. This is about how we govern our system. It's about how we direct the resources government provides to the services that Manitobans want and deserve. Healthcare leadership have become accustomed to a culture of scarcity and fear born out of the previous government and their approach, where cuts were rampant and support to the front lines of our healthcare system were absolutely minimal. Now, we've tried to correct this as a government by issuing very clear directives to health system leadership that cannot be ignored. Directives like moving 8% of funding from bureaucracy to the front lines and cutting agency use by 15%. All of this to respond to what patients and frontline staff have been asking for. After years of PC chaos, Brian Pallister's cuts and consolidation Heather Stephenson's growing bureaucracy, the health system had lost its focus. And it's time to bring that focus back. Earlier this morning, the boards of Shared Health and the WRHA, our two largest health authorities, appointed new interim CEOs. Dr. Chris Christodoulou will oversee Shared Health. Dr. Chris Christodoulou is a strong clinical leader who will bring his patient-centered focus to Shared Health. He's a highly respected, highly regarded physician who has worked across our communities, across the province for many, many years. Jane Curtis has agreed to step away from her role as CEO in Southern Health to lead the WRHA. Jane is an emotionally intelligent leader with a record of delivering excellent patient care while meeting fiscal targets. I'm confident that these two exemplary Manitobans will embrace the new culture in healthcare our government has been elected to create. I want to thank Lynette Siragusa and Mike Nader for their work. These are difficult public service positions. These are two folks who I know care deeply about Manitobans. I also want to say our government will be taking more steps to improve healthcare governance that I can share in the future. If the disease in our healthcare system is a culture of dysfunction, then the symptom of that disease is fiscal mismanagement. Over and over again, health authorities are spending their resources on the wrong things. Spending on private agency staff instead of public nurses. Spending on bureaucracy instead of spending on the front lines. Spending on out-of-province and out-of-country contracts instead of on patient care right here in Manitoba. In January, January 2024, our government commissioned independent auditors to undertake a comprehensive review of nearly every health authority. These audits revealed very real systemic government failures that have undermined morale for frontline workers while worsening the culture in our healthcare system. They've shown that there's a breakdown of communication between health leadership and government. All of these identified concerns only worsen patient care. The audits say, and I quote, "The processes, approaches, and culture appear to have shifted to a point where collaboration can, at times, appear to be at odds. This creates governance challenges in holding each SDO accountable to its mandate," end quote. Let me be clear. The lesson here is not about cutting funding. This is not to cut funding. It is to establish an accountability structure that ensures resources are directed where they need to be, that ensures resources are redirected from bureaucracy, as one example, to the front lines and to the bedside of Manitobans. It's important to say this very clearly. The PC approach to close emergency rooms, cut frontline staff, scrap services, did nothing to deliver more effective health care across our province. It did the exact opposite. What the PCs did, the approach that they took, led to longer wait times, frustration, and challenges on the front lines for staff and sicker patients across our province. Their approach to healthcare ballooned the bureaucracy. It pushed healthcare leadership further and further away from the front lines and away from the bedside and made patients worse off. Now, we've made progress. We've made progress building up the healthcare system across our province, and this is good news. We've hired over 870 net new healthcare workers, with more on the way. We have added hundreds of fully staffed beds to our hospitals. We've increased capacity for surgeries, and we're opening more primary care clinics, making sure that more Manitobans across our province have access to a primary care provider. Today is another step that's being taken to get us closer to ensuring that every single Manitoban has access to the care they need, where and when they need it.
Manitoba Health Minister Uzoma Asagwara speaking with the media earlier this morning. You can read more on this story on our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Breaking this hour,
CBC News brings you all the local, national, and international news you need to make sense of your world.
I've ripped up the supply and confidence agreement.
Now's your chance to enjoy a free preview of Canada's source for breaking and live news.
The air raid sirens went off.
Find out why more Canadians choose CBC News Network over any other Canadian news channel. The CBC News Network free preview. On now.
It is 12:14. You're listening to Radio Noon here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM in Winnipeg, 97.9 FM in Brandon, and everywhere on the CBC Listen app. And hello to the folks watching on our YouTube live stream. I'm Chloe Friesen. Thank you so much for joining us. Still to come on the show, a lack of food donations and over 1,000 new food bank users has Brandon's major food bank making a change. No more weekly food hampers. We'll check in with the executive director of Samaritan House Ministries coming up. And just after our 12:30 news, it's time for our call-in conversation. And with 5 confirmed cases of measles now in Manitoba, our call-in conversation today is dedicated to answering your questions and responding to your concerns about how you can protect yourself and your loved ones. We'll be joined by a medical officer of health for the provincial vaccine program. That's still to come here on Radio Noon. Checking in on our weather across the province here right now in Winnipeg, minus 13 degrees at the Forks. Brandon looking at minus 15 and cloudy skies at the airport. In Thompson, minus 17 degrees and drifting snow at the Thompson Airport. We do have snowfall warnings out for the Parkland, just the northern Interlake and east of Lake Winnipeg. Those areas could see up to 20 centimeters of snow by tomorrow afternoon. Southern Manitoba looking at 5 to 10 centimeters of snow. Winnipeg closer to 5 centimeters, but we could see some pockets of higher accumulation in some areas. It's a change they say they wish they didn't have to make. Due to a lack of donations, Samaritan House in Brandon will no longer be offering weekly food hampers. Instead, the nonprofit is prioritizing their monthly hampers for families. Samaritan House Resource Centre and Food Bank is the main hamper distributor in Brandon and the city's only major food bank. Heather Symbolisti is the executive director of Samaritan House Ministries and joins us on Zoom. Welcome to the show, Heather.
Hi, thank you, Chloe, for having me.
So how did Samaritan House come to this decision?
Well, it was definitely a difficult decision to make. We noticed over the last couple of months, just before Christmas, that our donations that we were receiving were reducing. So we have been just slowly watching how that was flowing through our food bank. And we had to really assess what we could do moving forward for the clients and how we could keep the monthly hamper really still supplied well, but maybe think about reducing the weekly hamper. The weekly hamper only consisted of a bun or a miscellaneous bread item and a liter of milk. So those items are going to transfer into the monthly hampers so that the monthly hamper is a little bit enhanced in that way, and clients don't have to make so many trips down to the food bank during the month. So we're hoping that that helps them as well. But yeah, it was a very, very tough decision to make. We are also with the over 1,200 new individuals and families that have been accessing the food bank. Just the number flow coming in each day has been very challenging to manage. So our staff we needed to work with our staff to make that a little bit a better and more consistent area for them to work in. So
how does it feel, or how did it feel to see donations slow, especially ahead of the holidays, which traditionally is a time where people give a bit more? What was that experience like for you?
It's definitely hard to see, but we weren't surprised that to see it. We were almost anticipating it because we know that some of the retail stores are selling items on discount. So items that we used to get are now being sold in the store. So we don't have access to them anymore. So that kind of flows down to our food bank. So it has definitely been a challenge. It is very hard to see. We've noticed donations for financial donations are down as well, probably about 19%, I think, compared to last year. So about $39,000 that we used to get, we are no longer getting. So we have to rely on our fundraisers and other initiatives to bring in those funds to help the food bank stay afloat.
I mentioned that you're seeing over 1,000 new users of the food bank in Brandon. How busy would you say Samaritan House, the food bank, has been lately? How would you characterize the amount of work that volunteers are doing to make sure that folks get food?
Well, staff and volunteers are consistently working. We figure on average there's probably between 80 to 100 households coming through our food bank each and every day. So that means that we last year in 2024 handed out over 33,000 hampers to families and individuals in our community. So it makes for very long and very busy days to make sure that the shelves remain stocked with the items that we do have, and then helping the clients go through our shopping model, because we have the shopping model that we find is just better overall to serve our clients.
Right, and so that's folks can go in and choose the food that they take home with them without it being pre-organized. Is that how it works?
Correct. Yes. Yeah. Because we want to offer the option for them to pick items that they're going to use and they're going to take home, and it's going to be worthwhile, instead of it just sitting in their cupboard and not getting utilized, and it leaves it for the next person that needs it.
What impact does the food bank have? What do you hear from the folks who are coming in and collecting food, doing that grocery shopping? What do you hear from them about the impact it has on their lives and their families' lives?
It's a very large impact, because lots of we served over 1,388 children in 2024. So we know, and we've heard from them, that we are providing some food as much as we possibly can to help them feed their kids, so that they can go to school with something in their tummies, so that they can pay attention. It's not always going to cover everything, but at least it helps. And so they're very thankful and appreciative, because they know that they can rely on us for their standard items like pasta and spaghetti sauce and soups, to be able to provide to their kids and to their family members. So it's important, especially when they are trying to make their bills and their finances last throughout the month.
Heather, what does Samaritan House need in this moment? But besides donations and donations of food, what could be done at any level of government or community support that would help Samaritan House continue to offer this support to Brandon?
I think the awareness that to community that the food bank is not supported by the province. We don't get any funding from them. We survive and exist on donations and fundraisers and our volunteers for the food bank, part of our program. And so in order for us to staff them in that, we heavily rely on those areas. And just that all of their support that they provide us, even if it's a can of soup, to spending a couple of hours to help us put on a food drive, any of those things helps us a lot.
So what's next? Where does Samaritan House go from here?
We're just going to keep on moving along and try to keep things as normal as we possibly can. We're constantly looking for ways to make sure that we're continuing the service, especially for the monthly hampers, so that we're giving that food out, and we're working with our partners and community to see what else we can do and what other solutions we can come up with. So we're just going to keep at it until we can figure it all out.
If folks want to support Samaritan House in Brandon, what should their first step be?
They can check out our website at samaritanhouse.net, or they can stop by at 820 Pacific Avenue between 8:30 and 4 p.m. and ask one of the staff or volunteers how they can help out or what they could do, or they could give us a call at 204-726-0758 extension 2, and we can have a chat about any ideas they may have.
Heather, thank you so much for joining us today on Radio Noon, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Heather Simbalisti is the Executive Director of Samaritan House Ministries Incorporated.
Manitoba is the kind of place that draws you in. Every day it's growing, it's changing. Just when you think you've got it figured out, though, there's something new to understand. I'm Marcy Marcuso, host of the CBC Daily Podcast. This is Manitoba. I've covered the news from the rail line in Churchill to the border in Emerson, and it's talking about the local stories that help us understand this place. That's what This is Manitoba is all about. Find it on CBC Listen or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
Hi, I'm Matea Roach, and I have a new show on CBC. It's called Bookends. Every week, authors from Canada and around the world will join me to discuss their latest books. We'll have best-selling authors and rising stars. Our conversations will be smart and surprising, because when the book ends, the conversation begins.
Bookends with Matea Roach premieres Sunday afternoon at 1:30 in Newfoundland, 3 Pacific, and on demand on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
Still to come on Radio Noon, now that 5 cases of measles have been detected in southern Manitoba, we're going to speak to a doctor on our call-in conversation who will answer your questions about how to keep you and your loved ones protected. The phone line opens just after our 12:30 news, but you can already send us a text message at 204-588-7355. Up next on Radio Noon, Donna Merrow wrote Break the Glass in 2017 in response to the political, economic, and climate anxiety at the time. Now, nearly 8 years later, he's sharing the song as a rallying cry, a call to do what we can do to build a better future. From Donna Merrow, this is Break the Glass.
No one ever seemed to listen to the ground beneath their feet, to the voices in the oceans, to the whispers in the trees. Now the water's rising, it's getting hard to breathe. Say it's not my problem, till it's breaking over me. Time's up, break the glass. I hear the wall of the dam just cracked. Put your heart in the burlap sack. You better be ready when the flood comes back. Walls are not the answer when the bottom's caving in. This tide won't stop coming. It's gonna be sink or swim. Ooh, waist deep in the water, there ain't no higher ground. Ooh, Lord, if we're still worth it, have mercy on us now. Time's up, break the glass. I hear the wall of the dam just cracked. Put your heart in the burlap sack. You just cracked. Put your heart in the burlap sack, you better be ready. Time's up, break the glass. I hear the wall of the dam just crack. It's a little too late to get your life on track. You better be ready, ready when the flip comes. Time's up, break the glass. I hear the wall of the dam.
That's Don Amaro here in Winnipeg with Break the Glass on Radio Noon. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Chloe Friesen, filling in as host here on the program. Lots still to come on Radio Noon. We're looking at snow in the forecast for much of Manitoba. CBC weather specialist Riley Lachuk will join us for a full look at that forecast. And with 5 confirmed cases of measles now in Manitoba, our call-in conversation today is dedicated to answering your questions and responding to your concerns about how you can protect yourself and your loved ones. We will be joined by a medical officer of health for the provincial vaccine program. That's coming up here on Radio Noon just after your CBC local news.
This is CBC News. Good afternoon, I'm Josh Crabb in Winnipeg. At 12:30, it's cloudy and minus 13 downtown, minus 15 in Brandon, and minus 17 in Thompson. There's a snowfall warning in effect for the Dauphin area and the Big Lakes, Lake Winnipegosis, Lake Manitoba, and Lake Winnipeg. 10 to 20 centimeters is expected in those areas. A shakeup in leadership today at 2 health authorities. Manitoba's health minister announcing the changes as they released the results of an audit of a comprehensive review of operations. It found all but 1 health authority had consistently reported annual deficits. Health Minister Uzoma Asagwara says spending has been centered more on the, quote, bloated bureaucracy than the front lines.
Very real systemic government failures that have undermined morale for frontline workers while worsening the culture in our healthcare system. They've shown that there's a breakdown of communication between health leadership and government. All of these identified concerns only worsen patient care.
Asagwara says Shared Health CEO Lynette Siragusa is being replaced by Dr. Chris Christodoulou, and the WRHA CEO will now be Jane Curtis, replacing Mike Nader. Families Minister Nahanni Fontaine says men need more support to help reduce violence against women. Fontaine announced $800,000 in funding for programs aimed at supporting newcomers and other men. The money is going to 5 programs across Manitoba. The federal government is covering half the tab. Fontaine wants the funding to keep going, even if there is a change of federal government.
I would hope, whoever is in government understands the critical importance of dealing with male violence and intimate partner violence.
Fontaine says men are responsible for about 90% of the violence against women and need support in their own lives. In Nigeria, at least 17 children have died in a fire at a school in the northwest of the country. The nighttime blaze trapped children inside the school's study hall. Several others were injured and are being treated at local health centers. The cause of the fire, which lasted about 3 hours, is unknown at this point. And finally, Internal Trade and Transport Minister Anita Anand says Canada is making progress on removing intra-provincial trade barriers, and that will be a key focus when the premiers meet with the Prime Minister later today.
The momentum is palpable. The moment is here, and we are seizing the moment.
Anand says she expects there will be substantial progress on enhanced interprovincial trade before the beginning of March. And that is CBC News from Winnipeg. Your next local news is coming up at 1:30.
Thank you very much, Josh.
You're welcome.
That is CBC's Josh Crabb. I'm Chloe Friesen, filling in as host here on Radio Noon this afternoon. Hello and thank you to Dylan Longhurst, our show technician. Sierra Sanders is our director. Kevin Nipatebo is running our YouTube live stream. And Riley Lachuk is our CBC weather specialist. And Riley, I just mentioned earlier, my only forecast was snow.
Okay.
That was the word I used. Is that accurate? If I were to say snow?
Yeah, that works anywhere really across southern Manitoba, northwestern Ontario. Minus 13 in Winnipeg right now. Brandon, Morden, minus 14s, minus 15 in Dauphin. Thompson's at minus 17. So we do have a snowfall warning in place. This is for Dauphin, Verdun, into the Riding Mountain National Park region, Swan River, Grand Rapids, Barons River, the northern Interlake. Looking at up to 20 centimeters of snow in that area through central Manitoba, really by the time we get to this time tomorrow. So some accumulating snow coming. that started falling overnight into the morning hours. In Winnipeg, we mysteriously have kind of dodged it. There's been snow all around Winnipeg, a little bit of light snow on the edges of the city, but really not a lot, at least here downtown, that I noticed on my walk in this morning. So it's really kind of formed a shield around Winnipeg and kind of
Oh
made its
yeah,
way.
no, we have the map up on
Yep.
YouTube, and we do really just have a circle around Winnipeg where
pretty
the
much.
snow is.
Yeah, Brandon seeing some snow, the Trans-Canada corridor, really west of Portage la Prairie into Saskatchewan, getting some snow, as is Highway 16 right now. So I do expect this is the light, fluffy snow that if you have any travel plans north or west of the city, you'll run into some of that fluffy snow, maybe some visibility concerns as we get through the afternoon. Most of the snow does track north of the city as we get through the day today. However, periods of snow as we get through the evening hours into the overnight period tonight, as the system makes its way through. Still in the morning tomorrow, some lingering flurries or some light snow in the Red River Valley. And then really we're clearing out as we head into Friday. We get back to a mainly sunny sky. Temperatures, though, remaining below seasonal as we head into the weekend. So as I mentioned, looking at the potential at least for up to 20 centimeters of snow in that swath, sort of from Riding Mountain National Park, even Minnedosa, north to Swan River, Arborg, Peguis, Grand Rapids, Barons River, into the east side of Lake Winnipeg. They're looking at that up to 20 centimeters, more like 10 to 15 most likely, but some pockets of some higher accumulations. In Winnipeg, our in-house model is showing that we get about 8 centimeters by the time we get to lunchtime on Saturday. I think that's a little bit high. I think maybe we're looking at about 5 on the high end. Locally, though, could pick up to 10 across southern Manitoba, so do prepare for that. Wind's not all that strong, but I did mention that we are looking at some very fluffy snow. It's very, very fluffy. This is the fluffy stuff.
It's nice to look at.
So it's nice to look at, but it will blow around very easily. You don't need much of a breeze
Okay,
to
that's less nice.
pick that up and
Yep.
blow it around. So be mindful of that as we get later into the night tonight, into the day tomorrow. We're looking at a high of minus 13 tomorrow in Winnipeg, minus 14 for Friday, minus 16s for the weekend. Maybe we pick up a couple of flurries on Sunday, but that's about it. And then we're back into the deep freeze for next week.
Classic Winnipeg winter.
Exactly.
Thank you very
You're
much,
welcome.
Riley. That is our CBC weather specialist, Riley Laychuk. He will be back throughout our local programming here with more updates on your weather forecast. Well, the time is 12:36. I'm Chloe Friesen. You're listening to Radio Noon, and it is time for our call-in conversation. There are now 5 reported and confirmed cases of measles in southern Manitoba. Public health officials say the cases are all from the same household and can be traced back to an outbreak in Ontario. The province has released a list of exposure locations, including the Rhineland Mennonite Church in Winkler on the morning of January 26th, and multiple places within Health Sciences Centre this past Friday. We have a detailed list of those locations and times up on our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba. Measles is one of the most contagious viruses known. And to help us understand how we can protect ourselves and others, Dr. Davinder Singh joins us. He's a medical officer of health for the provincial vaccine program. And we also want to hear from you. What do you want to know about measles? What questions do you have? We have an expert with us, so it's a good day to call in. You can call us at 204-780-0893. That's 204-780-0893. Or send us a text message at 204-588-7355, 204-588-7355. We have Dr. Singh on the line. Welcome to the show.
Great. Thank you very much for having me.
What was your reaction to the news that cases of measles have now been detected here in Manitoba?
Well, I suppose like many people that maybe first hear about a measles case, maybe get a bit of a sinking feeling, but unfortunately it was probably only a matter of time. We've seen several other jurisdictions in Canada that have reported measles cases, including, a large number in Ontario that you had mentioned. And, measles is endemic in several countries around the world. And so it's always just a plane ride away or, a visit away for someone who's got measles from any of those places and can unfortunately bring it into any jurisdiction where there aren't cases.
What does it say to you then that these cases are from within Canada, as far as we know?
I think that's an indication of the fact that we have several individuals who aren't immunized for one reason or another, and with decreasing immunization rates, that unfortunately increases the likelihood that you're going to get measles infection. With a very high vaccination rate, that's how we were able to eliminate measles in Canada and North America. But unfortunately, with dropping vaccination rates and groups of individuals who aren't vaccinated, then that increases the likelihood that you're going to get measles outbreaks.
I'm going to ask more about vaccination and vaccination rates shortly here, but before we get there, Dr. Singh, how contagious are the measles? How would you describe that?
Well, as you mentioned at the top of the spot, measles is one of, if not the most contagious viruses that we know of. It's more contagious than chickenpox, more contagious than COVID, more contagious than the flu. And if you were to have someone with measles and they were to go about their daily life in a group that was completely unimmunized and not immune to measles, you might expect as many as 12 or even 18 people to be infected over the course of their contagious period.
How is the virus transferred?
So it's an airborne virus, so it's transmitted when people cough or sneeze, but unfortunately, it can also be transmitted for 4 days before someone even develops the characteristic rash, that comes with measles. So the infectious time is really 4 days before they develop the rash to 4 days after they develop the rash. And because of that, people who share the same airspace as someone who's got measles, are likely to be exposed. And even, more specifically to this virus, the virus can hang around in the air for up to 2 hours after someone's left the room. So it's extremely contagious.
If you want to join this conversation, if you have questions for Dr. Singh, we would love to hear from you. You can call us at 204-780-0893 or text 204-588-7355. Dr. Singh, what do measles do to the body? What is the infection like?
So someone who's exposed to measles would typically develop symptoms starting anywhere from 7 to 21 days after they've been exposed.
Okay, that's a long range.
Yeah, it is a long range. On average, it's kind of right in the middle. So about 14 days or 2 weeks is kind of the average after someone's been exposed to when they might develop symptoms. Those first initial symptoms are more general. So someone could develop a fever, they might have a runny nose, or they might have a cough or red, itchy eyes. But after those initial symptoms, that's when kind of the characteristic rash develops. And it's usually kind of a red, blotchy rash that starts on the face or the head and then spreads downward throughout the body. Yeah. And unfortunately, measles, can have a fairly high rate of, serious consequences. So up to 1 in 10 people who develop measles can have things like ear infections or pneumonia, or, more rarely get something like a severe brain infection called encephalitis. And the infection is most particularly severe in those who are the youngest, so in infants, and can also be quite severe in terms of consequences for pregnant individuals who develop an infection, because it can lead to premature labor or a spontaneous abortion or a low birth weight infant.
So it is a serious illness, and it is a vaccine preventable illness, as we mentioned, but Canada has had about 80 cases confirmed over the past 3 months. What accounts for the rise and spread of measles across the country right now?
So, as I mentioned, measles is endemic in several other countries around the world. So, at any time, someone could have an infection and, travel to Canada and bring it to any jurisdiction here. But just because someone has measles and then comes to, any place here, doesn't mean that it's automatically going to spread. The vaccine is extremely effective. So 1 dose is typically considered to be about 93% effective at preventing an infection, and 2 doses, which is the recommended number of doses for our current routine immunization schedule, would be about 97% effective at preventing infection. Sometimes some people quote higher numbers, but the the vaccine is extremely effective at preventing infection. And if you had a really highly immunized group of people, then someone who's infected and exposes others isn't likely to lead to many infections, because so many of the people that they would be exposed to are immune, and then that would prevent further spread. But unfortunately, with decreasing immunization rates, more and more people are susceptible to infection, and just because it's so highly contagious, that leads to further and further spreading of the disease. So it's really a result of decreasing immunization rates.
Right. Dr. Singh, we got a question on our text line. And so we've been talking about vaccines as a way to prevent the measles. But Leanne asked, would masking up prevent contracting measles virus in a public setting like work or school? We were talking about how it is an airborne illness. So would masks have any effect?
So masks might have some effect, but as I mentioned, this is an exceptionally contagious virus. So it would actually be expected to even get through those little air spaces around a mask. So when a healthcare provider is seeing someone who has measles or who they think could have measles, they have to wear a special kind of mask that sometimes is called a respirator, and one type is an N95. So they have to wear this special kind of mask that fits very kind of tightly around the air spaces, the nose and the mouth, so that it prevents these tiny particles from getting through. So it's more, a step up above even a regular medical mask.
Really good question, Leanne. Thank you for texting us. Leanne actually asked another question regarding vaccines. Are there booster type vaccines for folks who are immune compromised? Is that something that people should be seeking out?
So if someone's immune compromised, I'd suggest talking to your regular healthcare provider. There's a whole spectrum of different types of immune compromise. And so some people who have, one type of compromised immune system, and, if they have a prior existing immunity from either infection, if they're born long enough ago that measles was circulating and they were exposed when they were young, or if they've been immunized, then, they may retain that immunity, despite being immune compromised in some way. But other people, their immune compromise is so significant that they may not retain their immunity if they had it before. And the measles vaccine is what's called a live attenuated vaccine. It just means that it's a version of the virus that if it's just given to most people, it doesn't cause any disease, but it produces that immune response. But if someone's severely immune compromised, then we wouldn't recommend giving that vaccine to them, just based on the level of immune compromise the person has.
Well, thank you for that answer, Dr. Singh, and thank you, Leanne, for the questions. If you have a question that you would like to ask Dr. Singh, you can phone us at 204-780-0893, or you can text us 204-588-7355. Now, Dr. Singh, I just have a clarification on your last answer there. So if someone has had measles in the past, if they are of an age where measles was more common in Canada, does that mean they are then immune to it later on in life?
Yeah, so if someone's had measles, they're very, very likely immune. It's been documented that someone can have a repeat infection if someone's had a previous infection, but it's extremely rare. So that's why we generally would consider most people who were born before 1970 as likely immune to measles. So we have different recommendations, if someone thinks they might have been exposed, depending on their age or if they've been immunized or if they've had a documented previous infection. And so, yes, if you've been born before 1970, you were very likely exposed, in childhood because measles was common in Canada at that time.
We've had a lot of conversations on Radio Noon and other shows here in Manitoba about various vaccines, COVID vaccine, flu vaccines, and a phrase that has come up from many guests is vaccine fatigue. Is this something that is in play here, in your opinion, vaccine fatigue when it comes to the lower vaccination rate we're seeing?
It's difficult to say. You have to talk to kind of each individual person or each individual family to really understand, what the reasons for someone choosing not to be immunized might be. It's possible, but it might also be a result of decreasing trust potentially in healthcare providers or in health agencies. As a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. So I think there could be lots of different reasons, again, just depending on the individual person or family. And, I think those reasons likely vary throughout the country.
Right. We have a call on the listener line here from Angela, and Angela has Angela's not quite ready yet. So we're going to just keep her on the line here. Okay, Angela is with us. And Angela, you have a question for Dr. Singh. Hello.
I would like to know what the difference is in the rash when you're looking at your body between measles, fifth disease, and chickenpox.
Okay. Thank you very much for that question, Angela. Dr. Singh.
Okay. Well, several, viral rashes in children can look similar. Fortunately for chickenpox or varicella, that's quite a bit different than many other rashes because they're called, they're like little kind of pockets or bubbles of fluid is what each kind of chickenpox looks like. So it's quite a bit more distinctive than some other viral rashes. For measles, one of the characteristic things is starting on the face. So understanding how that rash developed, is really helpful. Whereas several other rashes might develop on the chest and then kind of move outward. So a rash that starts on the face, moves downwards, especially if you haven't been immunized against measles, and particularly if you have been exposed during the exposures that were noted in the media bulletin yesterday.
Yes, and
either at the Health Sciences Center or at the church that was noted.
Folks can find all of those sites and the times on our website. I just want to mention cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Those would be really high risk indicators that you could be developing measles. And again, the time from when someone's exposed to when they might develop symptoms is between 7 and 21 days. So trying to put all these different pieces of information together might help you understand what your risk of measles might be. Fortunately for the average person in all of Manitoba at this time, we only have these 5 cases from this one household, but depending on how things develop, we could have more cases like we're seeing in Ontario.
Lastly here, Dr. Singh, any final advice or recommendations to Manitobans who might be feeling a little worried, a little bit more nervous now that there are cases in Manitoba?
Well, my best advice would be check your immunization status. So, if you've been born in 1970 or after, check your immunization records, see if you've been immunized against measles. If you haven't been immunized against measles, or if you're unsure and you don't have a record, then talk to your healthcare provider or local public health office to ask about getting immunized, because immunization is really the only way that you can be confident about protecting yourself from measles, and the vaccine is extremely effective at preventing infection.
Dr. Singh, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon here on Radio Noon. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you again for having me.
Dr. Davinder Singh is the Medical Officer of Health for the Provincial Vaccine Program.
Angeline Tadaweo hosts The Block.
Afrobeats to jazz, hip-hop to R&B, calypso, Kez the Dan, Michelle Montano, Bob Marley, Bounty Killer. So we really give all these artists a chance to shine, and the key is in the programming, in making it make sense, and making sure that the music is fluid, a fluid experience.
The Block with Angeline Tadaweo. Available now on CBC Listen.
You're listening to Radio Noon on CBC Radio 1. This next song goes out to all the parents out there. Maybe you have just wrangled the kids into the van. Maybe you're at home. Whatever the case is, this song is for you. This is from Katie St. Germain, and she's dealing with the struggles of parenting in her first new song of 2025. It's called Good Girl Gone Bad Mom.
Put some coffee in the pot, pack their lunches in a box, kiss my husband out the door, clean the toys from the night before, walk the dog and wash the car, plant some flowers in the yard, keep the tie, break up the fights, just try to get it right, smile and wave, it's okay, just get through another day. Good, good girl in a perfect little world, SUV to PTA, stop at soccer on the way. Good, good mom, bless your heart, you're so strong. This good won't last for long. This good girl's gone bad mom. Don't know why I even try, get it wrong every time. Brush your teeth, get them to bed, organic meals and homemade bread. Count the steps and no TV, don't know what's come over me. I can't wait for this to pass, but enjoy it while it lasts. Smile and wave, it's okay, just get through another day. Good, good girl in a perfect little world, SUV to PTA, stop at soccer on the way. Good, good mom, bless your heart, you're so strong. This good won't last for long. This good girl's gone bad mom. If these kids can't get along, better pour me something strong. Good, good girl in a perfect little world, SUV to PTA, stop at soccer on the way. Good, good mom, bless your heart, you're so strong. This good won't last for long. Good, good girl in a perfect little world, SUV to PTA, stop at soccer on the way. Good, good mom, bless your heart, you're so strong. This good won't last for long. Mama's gonna need a drinking song. Pour me something strong. This good girl's gone bad mom. Pour me a glass, will you?
Out of Niverville, that is Katie St. Germain with her first new song of 2025. That one is called Good Girl Gone Bad Mom. I wonder if anyone listening out there can relate to that one. You're listening to Radio Noon on CBC Radio 1. We're just wrapping up the show here, but lots of great local programming still to come. Up to Speed starts at 3 o'clock. Coming up on Up to Speed, while a trade war with the U.S. has been put on pause, at least for now, the threat has seen many Canadians putting more focus on the point of origin of their groceries. Food writer Julie Van Rosendahl will join Faith on Up to Speed to talk about the renewed interest in shopping local and buying Canadian. That is coming up on Up to Speed this afternoon. Thank you so much for tuning into Radio Noon here. I'm Chloe Friesen. Thank you to Dylan Longhurst, our technician. Sierra Sanders is the director. There's that way from Sierra on YouTube. And Kevin Ipatebo, of course. There's the way from Kevin, the peace sign, running our YouTube live stream. Thank you to Wendy Parker, our show producer. Coming up next on CBC Radio 1, it's Bookends.